for mindset, when I say mindset, what I'm talking about in my world are what I kind of call like the big seven. You got belief, attitude, grit, focus, emotional control, discipline, self-awareness.
Sandy, welcome to the show.
Hey man, great to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. My first and most important question is, how are you doing? Like, for real, Sandy, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. I actually love that question. I'm doing great. Life is good. I'm healthy. The family's healthy. Always kind of the little drama of life, but everything's about perspective. So in a good spot, doing well, and trying to have impact on people just like you.
Hello, my friend. Before we jump straight into the episode, I would love to share the sponsors of this podcast. And the sponsors of this podcast are all the businesses that I've created that are really part of the ecosystem that run this whole thing. And at the top of that list is Patreon. Patreon is the home of our exclusive community where we do bonus episodes, live streams, Q&As, and merch discounts, and so much more. Patreon is the #1 way to support this podcast and to support my mental health nonprofit called You Are Loved. Next, we have my clothing brand called Shop for Everybody. Every hat and every t-shirt you see me wear on every single episode of this podcast is from Shop for Everybody. It's the home of For the Dads, For the Moms, all Something for Everybody merch, and it's the home of all You Are Loved merch. So that's shopforeverybody.com. And the last thing is my sports performance brand called Champions Adjust. Again, if you see anything Champions Adjust related, it's all found at champsadjust.com. It also has its own podcast. We also do a sports show through Champions Adjust. And if you're looking for any mindset or mental skills classes, they can all be found at champsadjust.com. And so if you want to stay up to date on everything that we're doing here with all of the businesses that I'm involved in, please go to aaronmashbitz.com and sign up for our weekly newsletter. Thank you. Now, on to the episode, completely uninterrupted and ad-free. Here we go. Do you consider yourself an optimistic guy? Have you always been optimistic? Did you learn to be optimistic? What's your sort of vibe there with that kind of mindset?
Yeah. I as I've gotten older, right, I think I'm fully aware of that there are many, many things that I am not good at. Being gritty, though, is not one of them. I think I've always been pretty gritty, always been optimistic, always like a worker, trying to stack wins and definitely scrappy. But I think that's important. So yeah, I'm an optimistic guy. But I also think that, so much of our circumstances are, you know, how we choose to shape them. And, at the end of the day, not telling you anything you don't know, like there's only two choices, you either get up or you don't. And that's, I've always kind of been wired like that. That's definitely how my family is. And as you get older, you start to see more and more of the people that you surround yourself with, like, everybody kind of migrates, to being together with a lot of like-minded people. So yeah, big thing for me. I when I start speeches, one of the things that I kind of get into quick is that I think that you can take this to the bank. Like problem reporters are always problems. Problem solvers, like those are your achievers.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I've been the same way too. I feel like I've always been very optimistic about life. Maybe that was instilled to me early on by my parents, who I mention all the time because they're amazing, but you learn it through sport. And then I learned, like, I think optimism then breeds more mental toughness, because if I think that things will work out, not that they will guaranteed, but if I put maybe in the right effort, attention, and focus through that optimistic mindset, I'm going to be more mentally tough. I mean, I give like an example of a baseball team. Let's say a baseball team goes down 4-0 in the first inning. One team is optimistic, saying, hey guys, we'll chip away, all good, let's get them back, we got a lot of innings to go, let's go one at a time. Or the unoptimistic team who doesn't have that sort of culture or mindset's like, fuck, all right, we're down 4-0, this game's over, pack it up, we'll play tomorrow. And like, that's
I
the same approach I want to take as an individual. Anyways, go ahead.
my dad always used to say, right, like that proverbial glass half full, glass half empty. Like I give him a lot of credit. I didn't fully understand it then, but he always used to say, like there's a third lane, right? Like the glass is refillable. It's not just half empty, half full, like it's refillable.
Mm,
So what you were just talking about, I mean, so much of the work that I do really, really, really spends a lot of time in the focus space. And I think as it relates to mindset, I use that word mindset. I don't engage too much in the mental performance because I think the suggestion there is that something is wrong with somebody or they're broken. And this isn't like, you know, taking a weak approach to it. But I think mindset is foundational, right? Like it is the foundation of the building, whatever you're trying to stack on top of it, whether you're an athlete, a business person, whatever it is, your mindset, shapes your perspective. Your perspective builds belief, belief fuels confidence, confidence enhances performance. So that is where it starts. So I agree with you 100%.
yeah. Let me run this by you. Let me see what you think. I had this woman a long time ago. I think she was in episode 100 of the podcast. We're now in the 400
Of your
range.
10,000 episodes.
Yeah, and I'm shocked I remember this, but she used to be the sports psychologist for the New York Yankees. Now she does like independent stuff, kind of like you, book speaking, all that stuff. Her name is Lauren Johnson, and she said, "Mindset isn't everything, but it impacts everything." And I thought that was
Absolutely.
very, very interesting. What do you think about that?
I I agree. I agree 1,000%. Anytime if I'm doing like a presentation, right, it's a pro locker room or a speech or whatever, it's a lot of time kind of in the athlete space, but whatever your sport is, right? So I always start with right out of the gate. I'll say, what percentage do you think of sport fill in the blank is mental? If you just take, my portion of it, hockey, right? I'll say, okay. And here's how I want everybody to answer. Everybody's going to put their hands up. I'm going to start counting at 10%. I'm going to go up and up and up. And when you think I hit your number, put your hands down. Okay. Not one hand comes down. It doesn't even move until I get to like at least 70%. It's
Hmm.
normally 80%. Then immediately I say, okay, here's question number two. Of your practice time, how much is dedicated to developing your mental skills? And I say, okay, this time we're going to answer the same way. That's right. But I'm going to start counting at 90% and I'm going to go down. And not a hand moves until I get to 20%. Most of the time it's at 10%. So like within a minute and a half, right? So many people I think know this, but what they don't know is like how to do it, what to work on, what does focus mean, what does focus not mean. Um, and that's so I agree 1,000% with that statement.
Yeah, because like, well, I think one, like, it's great that sport is now really focused on the mental performance aspect because I think business performance and leadership is downstream from that.
Yep.
So people are like, okay, if the best in the world are doing visualization and mental imagery and focusing on their routines and their process, well, if I want to be an elite business person, I should do it. So I think that's a great sort of trickle down effect. But I also think our society is based on results and outcomes, which is not a totally bad thing, right? If you don't get the job done, like you're not doing the thing. Like if I don't make the play, I'm not on the field. If I don't get the presentation right, oh, I get that. I get that. It's about results and outcomes. I understand. But since we solely focus on that, the mind is such an intangible, sort of invisible piece that I can't sort of, it's hard to like measure and grasp to know if I'm getting it and it's going to actually produce results. But we know it does. We have like
Yep.
now concrete evidence to know like if you are more focused at work, you're probably going to do better, right?
Yep.
If you're not as
Well, and
fucking
what
distracted, you're probably going to do better, right? Anyways,
yeah,
go ahead.
no, no. So in what you just said, like I try and use this example all the time. It's one of like the pillars of kind of what the stuff that I do is yes, we are a society of focusing on outcomes. Outcomes do matter. I agree 100%. The irony though is that really the only thing that gives you the best chance to actually achieve those outcomes is focusing on the actions and behaviors that when and if you do them, they will lead to the outcomes that you want, right? So it's like, you don't like your output, we got to talk about the input. And yes, business, sports, whatever it is, we always tend to jump right to the outcomes, right? And that's this big kind of broad view. It's that's really not focus. I think that's more awareness. Like I would say, like awareness would be looking out of a window, right? Like, hey, there's the neighbor, there's a dog, there's a squirrel, there's a tree. Like that's not focus, that's awareness. Focus is like looking into a mirror, you know? So that is where it starts. But yeah, actions and behaviors. Everybody, those become the controllables.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if you hear like some of the best teams who like win all the time, at the very beginning of the season, they'll say, obviously, the goal is to win a championship. Now we're never going to talk about that again.
Yeah, that's
That's it.
that's the direction, right? And everybody has to have that. Like we have to have like what so many younger athletes, boy, girl, whatever, and even older ones. I say younger. I'm 50, so I'm even talking about drafted pros, right? Maybe they don't have the experience, but they've been drafted. Um, when you really kind of peel back the layers, most of them can't identify what success is, right? Like, so I'll say, how'd you play? How'd you perform? They'll say good. And I'll say, just to give me some, a baseline, like what does good mean? I don't know. I'm asking. And it's silence, right? So to your point, if it can't be defined, if there isn't even a direction that we know that we're going, how can you celebrate it? How can you make adjustments? How can you refine it? How can you track progress? How can you recalibrate? So yeah, that direction and purpose, I would also put that under kind of like the purpose. Yeah, you gotta have purpose, you gotta have purpose.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, great teams have their nose and toes all headed in the same direction.
There you
And
go.
that's the same
That's
for a
it.
business, same for a family. I want my wife and my son and I all to be focused in the same direction, right? We're trying to do the same stuff and create the same, whatever the case may be. So I think that's really important. But
Yeah, I
I
do
knew we
too.
were just going to sort of riff here, Sandy. I
That's
had a
fine.
feeling that this is going to happen. But I did want to have a jumping off point, even though we've already been speaking for about 10
Yep.
minutes. I think focus, you talk a lot about focus. And I think in today's day and age, that's like one of the, if not the most important thing. If you can focus, you probably are going to beat sort of 90% of people that are maybe doing the same thing as you. So when you think about focus, what does that mean? How are we training it? What does it look like? And things like that.
Yep. So from me, so for mindset, when I say mindset, what I'm talking about in my world are what I kind of call like the big seven. You got belief, attitude, grit, focus, emotional control, discipline, self-awareness. That's the world that I kind of live in. Within the mindset, I would say spectrum, the concept of focus is number one, right? The ability, which is not easy, the ability though to be right here, right now, this moment is the most important moment, and being all in on that concept, not a couple toes dipped in, but all in, right? And when someone learns how to do that, what they start to, I think, realize is that focus is not about blocking out. Focus is about locking in, right? So for so many people, you know, don't think about this, don't be nervous, don't strike out, don't turn the puck
Yeah.
over, like all these don't do's, right? And that's not how the brain operates. That it's almost like the more times you are trying to tell yourself that, like you're digging yourself into this hole that the brain can't process negatives. Um, so it's like if I said to you, Simon Sinek says this all the time, like, don't think about an elephant. Like, right now, you just thought about an elephant, right? But if I wanted you to
It's
think about a
extremely hard not
lion,
to.
yeah,
Yeah.
I would say think about a lion. So the big part about focus is right here, right now, being very, very intentional and not trying to block things out. It's identify what it is we want, be all in on it, and spend the time locking those in. And it's not that the peripheral goes away, but it's not in your lane of focus anymore, right? Keeping it narrow. Um, and everybody, I think, you have to know what's at the end of that narrow vision, right? So from a focus standpoint, we spend a lot of work on that, a lot of time, a lot of identity. Who are you? Who shows up? And, we have to kind of recreate the power of creating focus. You got to be focused on being focused.
Mm, yeah. There's a great saying in AA. They say that if you have one foot in the past and one foot in the future, you are
Yep.
peeing on the present.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm
That's
like,
right.
yeah, dude, I don't want to fucking
That's
pee
right.
on the present. I want to
No,
be in the present
no.
moment, right?
Yeah.
All great things are expressed in the present moment. And
Yep.
if we can stitch as many of those together, in baseball, we talk about refocusing continuously because there's so many breaks in baseball that you're
Yep.
not going to focus. Let's say if you're a youth athlete, that's a 2 hour game, you're not going to focus for 2 straight hours because you're in the dugout for 20 minutes or 5 minutes, or you're in between pitches for 15 seconds and all that stuff. Hockey's more fast paced and you're going. So I think it's a little maybe quite easier to maybe stay locked in. I don't know. Never played hockey, just sort of throwing it out there. But baseball, it's more about refocusing. And I think that's a lot for us as individuals. If I'm like in a classroom, it's hard for me to stay focused for 45 minutes straight, but I can continuously refocus once I feel myself get a little distracted. I'm bringing myself back in. See it's self
Yep.
distracted, bring myself back in. And I think just like just like anything, sports are just a vehicle for life, as you say. And so
That's right.
I think that's also important too, that we don't have to like strain our mental energy continuously. We can have a refocus mechanism as well. Now, if you're trying to work for 90 straight minutes, I think we should be able to do that deep work, kind of like Cal Newport says. But that's like something you probably need to work up to. If you can't, stay off your phone for 5 minutes, 90 minutes is like
I
a
I
lot,
I remember I remember when, like, COVID started. um, like you, I mean, I've been, boardrooms, offices, private business, whatever it is. But I just remember when that whole thing started, and for so many younger people, it was like you stick them in front of a computer for 6 hours and expect any sort of progress, health, anything to work out. We don't, we didn't know what we didn't know. But what you just said is spot on. So a big part of focus, right, is there's a lot of learning about compartmentalization, almost kind of like that swipe concept. Like, it's okay to have the thought, but now what, right? We spend a lot of time in the now what. For some folks it's a reframe, it's a reset. But I think being focused, whether it's for a minute, one hockey game, a shift, a baseball game, when you learn what focus means and how to control it, how to reset it, how to ignite it, how to protect it, it
Mm,
is something that you can dim. If it starts to dim, you can pop it back on. But having the identity and having the definition of what is about to happen, right? So I'm getting ready to play a baseball game. They're going to be ups, they're going to be down, slow, fast, pace, whatever. But when I flip that switch to become a baseball player, this is the world that I live in, right? So there is kind of some built-in flexibility, but we all do it. It's the don't think about the what if it doesn't work out. It's that's not thinking, that's worrying, and that's not how the brain operates.
yeah. Yeah, we wanna, like, think about what we hope does happen, not what we
Yeah,
hope doesn't happen. I
yeah.
think that's a powerful reminder for kids
The
and for
like the what
parents.
if game, right? Like, um, uh, we talk to people, and there's always like, well, what if it doesn't work out? What if I look stupid? What if I fail? What if I get cut from the team? I tell everybody I am perfectly okay with you playing that what if game, but why isn't it what if to the positive? Like, what if it does work out? What if this is the best performance of your life? What if there's a scout up there? Or what if you do get that bank loan? Like, I don't know if your what ifs are real. I don't know if my what ifs are real, but if we're going to play that what if game, like, why don't we do it to the positive? Like, like control, live in the world that you want, not the world that you're trying to prevent. And that's it's not an easy thing. That's a learned behavior.
Yeah, I mean, all of these mindset skills are not easy.
Yep.
But the thing about them is that they can be trained, they can be learned. Some
Yep.
people potentially are born with a little bit more optimism or whatever this or that than others, but you can change the texture of your mind to hunt the good stuff, right? You can allow yourself to focus a little bit more than you did previous, right? You can go into these deep work blocks. You can, shine your spotlight of
Yep.
attention, all these types of things. They're learned. You can, like, I mean, I have a 5-week-old son right now, Sandy, and
Hey,
eventually,
congratulations.
thank you.
Yeah,
Eventually
man.
that little dude will learn how to walk. But like
Yep.
before he does, he's going to fall down like so many
That's
fucking
exactly
times,
right.
and he's not even going to care. He's going to look at me and be like, dude, you're good,
Whatever.
dude. Right, rock on. Keep doing it, man. And he's going to get back up, and he's going to get back up, and he's going to get back up. And I want him to maintain that sort of attitude
Absolutely.
forever. Like
Yep.
anytime he comes home from school, I'm like, dude, what kind of mistakes you make today? What can we learn from it? He's like, well, dad, I did this or this or this. Sweet. Fuck yeah, dude. Celebrate it. Let's move on. Like the same way he learned how to walk. And like, but we forget that because we're like, I don't know, something happens or how we grew up and all that type of stuff. But I see just like this little innocent human right now just doing tummy time. And he like lifts his head up and he gets fired up. I'm like, good job, dude. And then he cries because he doesn't know
How,
what
you
to
mind if
do.
I
And
ask, how old are you? Mind if I ask?
I'm 33.
33. Okay. Yeah. So I'm 50, and I would say that, yeah, somewhere along the line, well intended. It's not right or wrong. It's just different, right? It's
Mhm.
different now than when I grew up. That's different from when you grew up. Like it's all different. And um, I think so many times as parents, I understand it. Like we're all everybody's trying to um, give the child a better life than you had. But somewhere along the lines, that's kind of shifted to preventing the fall, like preventing the bruise, right? When a lot of the stuff that I work on with parents or coaches is we're trying to build the backbone and teach the get back up. I
Mm.
don't really know if the fall is really that big of a deal. It happens to everybody, and that doesn't mean stop. So as we've tried to protect these kids and shape them and prevent the fall, I think that resiliency, I think that grit, I think that stick to itiveness has kind of subsided, and I think that's a big difference between my generation to yours to the current one. So the hardest thing I think for younger people to understand, and certainly on the professional athletes, right? What you were talking about earlier with that kind of hunt for outcomes is it is that perspective. So coaches talk about seasons, business leaders talk about, quarters when they're evaluating performance. So coaches talking about a season, hey, put those results in my hand and let's look at the season. A boss, put your quarter sales in my hand and let me evaluate it. But from the other side, all we can really do is we're just trying to win the day, like, so the terms that we use, like we need to speak in today's, right? Like all I'm trying to do is just add up enough today's, because eventually when that coach or that boss, whatever, when they're saying put a time frame of results in there, you just hand them all the today's. I don't know how much it adds up to, but we're just trying to win the day, right? Win enough minutes,
Mm.
start winning hours, enough hours, start winning days, and on and on and on. So, um, I and I don't think that exists for a lot of younger people. I don't know why it would, unless taught or shown. But I think that's in the work I do. That is like a number one.
Yeah. Yeah, I have an interesting sort of story on that. So last summer, um, I coached a 17-year-old baseball team, and these are high level athletes. All 20 of them have the ability to play college baseball. So that's
Yep.
what the team is for. We're going to recruiting things. So we started the whole season, June. The season is only June and July. You just sprint through the summer. You play about 7 tournaments every weekend. It's really fucking fun, but it's a lot of work traveling every
A
single
lot. Yep.
weekend. So we start with 21 guys on the roster because you need a lot of players, whatever. In our last tournament, Sandy, guess how many players we had show up who still were on the team?
8,
10. Barely could
10.
fill a
Yep.
lineup,
Yeah, I
right?
know it.
So that means 11 baseball players quit the team, and mostly because they didn't get the playing time they thought they deserved after
Yep.
1 or 2 tournaments. And that's a stark difference between the 10 players who showed up every single time, no matter what. And by the end of the season, they were playing every single inning. They
Yeah.
might have not even started at the beginning, but they waited it out. And now they got so many at bats and reps and they're having a great fucking time. And like, that's from the parents down to the kids. And then the other ones are
Yep.
like, I don't know if it's entitlement. I don't know if they think you're better than me. I don't know if they just hated me. Like it could be a combination of things, but that's just like a stark, very easy to tell difference between two kinds of attitudes that happen. And then of course you see all the kids like sort of in the middle, but those are like the two sort of
It's the
extremes.
grind, that middle phase of the grind, like every book has that chapter. Every great success story has that chapter. Like I think it's a little bit more societal, like we're such a culture of highlights and we're always seeing, like the payoff, but what nobody is really kind of seeing is like the work that goes behind it, the grind, the late nights, the early mornings, the injuries or staying late at the office. Like the grind matters. And that is, again, it's to your point, I think both are probably learned in the environment, to
Mhm.
the good and the bad, but that grind concept, we got to remember why we're grinding. It's not always because there might be a payoff, there might not be, but you know, isn't that the skill that we want younger people to have? Is, you know, there's a wall here. Okay, well, like what now? What? Like what? We pack up and go home. I don't know. Maybe we try to go over it. Maybe we try to bash through it. Maybe there's a door. It's I think how they're wired.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very interesting to see just how differently people grow up sort of in the same city and around the same things and with some of the same friends too. And like, I find it very interesting,
But in
but
that example of you for your the baseball players, I'd ask you a question. Because I bet you
Mhm.
probably agree that, right, at some point, like everybody has game, right? So like the separators of those players for you, it probably wasn't skill. Like they're all good players. Like, but what's
Mhm.
the difference maker is
Yep.
it's in the head, right?
Yep. Yep. I mean, probably the most gifted and athletic player on our team and the fastest player on our team. He ran like a 6'3", 6'4", 60, was the laziest. Wouldn't dive for a baseball. I watched him stand on first base for 21 straight pitches and didn't want to steal a bag. I'm like, dude, you run a 6'4". Fucking run, mate. Who cares if you get thrown
Yep.
out? But like doesn't want to do it. Doesn't like has this like sort of avoidance mindset. And that's a sort of I don't want to get yelled at. Like, I'm not gonna yell at you. He's like, well, my high school coach will. It's like, so all of
Yep.
these things compile up and he's afraid to let his whole potential flourish. And
Yep.
that sucks because he has so much skill. Well, what if I dive for this ball and I make an error? So what, dude? Dive. Let's go.
Yeah.
Lay it on the line, baby. I'm ready
Yep.
for it. But what if you do make that play like you're talking about? What if you do go get that ball and you spin around and you throw it to first base and you're like, holy shit, I can do this. Whoa, fuck.
And that
Like
that
that's the
that's the
unlock.
lesson that for me, like that's the big payoff, I think, in the world that I'm in. Like, and you said it earlier, just with trying to help make them great humans. Like I'm just trying to help people maximize their potential. I don't care if it's a professional hockey player, professional, I'm working with a professional wrestler now, um, not WWE wrestle, like a wrestler.
Got
But
it.
it
Yeah.
like it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where it is. Like it, helping people maximize their potential, whatever that means for them is like that's what it's about, and I don't know where that kind of got off track. um I think winning like it matters. I think it's important. I think competing matters. I think result all that stuff matters. Integrity matters, character matters, but the grind matters. Putting yourself out there, right? I'd rather go out there and not make the team than you stand on the sidelines and say, you know what, I don't really know if I'm gonna make it or not. Like I don't know if you are either, but roll the dice. Like you got to
Mhm.
roll the dice.
Yeah. Yeah. There's nothing better as like a coach. I'm sure you know this, like when you see someone finally see their own potential, like they finally
Yep,
start to like believe in themselves. And that's just the beautiful power of a role model, a coach, a mentor, in whatever space it is in.
I
Like,
agree.
like that is like and we've lost a little bit of that because I know young men are struggling a little bit and they don't know who to look to or who to reach, or because social media is so convoluted with some of these, crazy ideas. But like when you really find someone who just looks at you and sees you, not
Yep.
the value you might bring or the results you might get, there's like, I really love you and I see how great you can be. Those are the best coaches I ever had, were the
Yep.
ones that they coached me the hardest, but I knew before all that they actually loved me. Like,
Yep.
Aaron, I want to hang out with you and your family. Let's go to eat after this. But when we're on the field, I'm going to coach you hard because I see what you can bring to the table. That's real. That's
Yep.
love. That's like the most important thing we can do as a coach, a person, a mentor, a teacher, whatever sort of environment you're in. This is not sports. This is like life. What if someone loves mathematics? All right, I'm gonna instill that belief in you. Like, that's a great thing. Like, I want my son to be good at math. Like, I
Yep.
wasn't
Yep.
fucking horrible at it, you know. I
Yep.
barely got through algebra when I was in college. Thank God, I had the answers to the test because I played baseball. But
No
but that
comment for
stuff
me.
is
No
like,
comment if I'm
yeah,
talking about that. No comment.
yeah, yeah. But like that's the juice right there. That's the juice of life.
That's right.
And so,
And you know what? So
yeah,
you talked about your parents and stuff. I'm very, very fortunate. I mean, my terrific people. They were, alpha achievers. And not, I'm not talking about status or monetary, whatever. Like they're prideful people, right? They have great integrity, and they were grinders, and because of the grind, they were successful. But yeah, I mean, so that certainly was happening at home. But I mean, to your point, I still remember youth coaches that I don't remember all the X's and O's of maybe what we were talking about, but I do remember like those inspirational moments, those coaching moments, not belittling, but trying to empower, like those are the lessons that I still take with me. And I agree. I think it's so important to have those. And what you just said about the mathematics thing, one of my most rewarding things ever. I did not envision this when I originally started doing this. Um, it wasn't even a super high end athlete. It was just a kid at that time that wanted to make his middle school hockey team.
all
Like
right,
no pro or collegiate aspirations, whatever. Worked his butt off. He came to our camps, our clinics. He did private lessons. I mean, he grinded, right? When it was warm out, when it was cold out, when it was raining, whatever. He just fucking grinded. Um, and he ended up making the team. Maybe a couple years go by. I don't even lost track of him. But he came. He and his mom came in one day, and he's like, "I just wanted to thank you because the stuff we learned here, those push yourself, get yourself out of your comfort zone, try." That gave him the juice, the belief, the confidence to go chase what he really wanted to do, which was play the piano. And I didn't know it. I didn't even realize it. But at that moment, I was like, this is what this is for. Like, this is the deal. This is the dream. This is the thing that, like, it worked. Whatever happens with hockey, whatever. I mean, who cares? But if that's what the lesson learned for this, seventh grader at the time, I don't know what else could be more important.
yeah, dude, I got a little bit of goosebumps when you said that. Just like, that's
And this
it.
was
Because
we talked about earlier. This is so we had this massive training facility. I mean, we were doing hundreds of lessons, private lessons on a weekly basis, pros, beginners, whatever. It's a safe place, really, really encouraging, participatory. And I always knew that we would make better hockey players and better athletes. But what I didn't know when we started it was probably the most impactful thing that ever happened to me in that, 7, 8 year stretch was that story. Had
Mhm.
nothing to do with hockey. You know, I just said, "Oh my gosh, like this is it." That's it. That's what that kid will remember. And maybe not me, my name, but he's going to remember sometime in his life, adults pushed him, didn't let him quit, held him accountable, empowered him to grind, made him learn how to, be comfortable being uncomfortable, put himself out there. And lo and behold, add all that up, and the kid had the courage to chase a dream.
Yeah,
Done.
what a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Um, Yeah, let's pull on that string a little bit more and just generally talk about youth sports, because I think with what you said, if you look at the whole totality of the business of youth sports, it's like $1 billion business now. We're just missing the mark on what it's for. We're totally missing the mark. Um, so I don't know, general thoughts on that, what's going on there, and then I think we'll jump into some of your books and what you've wrote
Yep.
about youth parents and
I
stuff like
I
that. But
agree. I agree. I it's all over the spectrum, right? What I know is true though is what what sports provides to younger people, um, whatever the physical part of it, competition, all that stuff, all of the lessons learned, um, it those things do not define the parent or the family, right? Like youth, it's go out and participate. Maybe go put yourself out there. You're not the best on the baseball team, even though you might be the best on the football team. Like learn how to be a better teammate, whatever it is. Um, but something that is should be so pure and so enjoyable. It, it's not the kids who are messing that up. If there are places, right? It's the parents and it's the adults. And um, I'm a neutral party. I've worked with people on both sides, but I am not shy about saying that I think that's shameful. I think that parents have the obligation um, to uphold like the integrity of what it is that they're trying to empower their kid to do, um, which is compete, don't quit, be passionate about something, have discipline, learn about discipline, build great habits. And it's the ultimate. Like when you do this, you're going to get this. Like
Mhm.
practicing over here leads to success over here. Um, and somewhere along the line, it's become, um, I don't know if that's as complete as it should as it needs to be. So I agree with you that there's some work that needs to be done in that area.
Yeah. I coached a 9-year-old baseball team,
Yep.
probably 2 years ago, Sandy,
Yep.
and to warm up for practice, we played 15 minutes of tag. Thought it was a great idea
Love
because I
that.
think baseball, you can get a little bit too skill oriented, and we forget
Yep.
that we're athletes. We're supposed to be creative. We forget lateral movement, side to side footwork. So, and they're 9, right? They're like
Yeah.
whatever, right? We don't need to do a dynamic warm up. So they
Yeah.
played tag for
Like
15
we're
minutes.
we're trying to
They were
have fun. Like that's
right. They'd
still
wrestle
rule
each
number
other
one.
down. They'd sometimes pick on the slower kid, whatever. Like they just do it. And so I did that for a couple practices, and I got some messages from parents saying that I wasn't taking the team
I
seriously
knew you were
enough.
going to say that. I knew it. As soon as you said that story, I knew you were going to say it.
And I'm like, okay. Like we're still gonna play tag. Like you can take your kid off the team, I guess, if I'm not taking baseball seriously enough. But like I told the parents at the very beginning of the season, I said, the only goal I have for your child is that he wants to play baseball again when he's 10. That's
I
it.
love absolutely.
And they're like, well, what about winning tournaments and stuff? I was like, I don't give a fuck. What are you talking about?
Kids
Like
nine.
if they play well, if they learn the game, they're just gonna go out there and do the thing. And by the end of the season, man, the kids got better. Parents hated me. It's like whatever the case may be, but like probably 90% of them, they didn't want to play with me the next season, but they wanted to play baseball next season, which is really
Yeah.
the only thing I care about. I think that should be the sole goal. And so I don't know. I think about this a lot.
I hockey is one of those sports, right? Where I mean, I guess it's every sport now, but where kids are starting to specialize younger and younger and younger. And there's so many models out there that, the parents want a full developmental model. And maybe it's like a participatory model, right? Because you got kids who I just want an activity versus I want to be in the major leagues, or whatever it is. Um, but yeah, at the end of the day, I don't care what sport it is. Um, the participatory aspect of it and the having fun aspect of it, learning not to quit aspect of it, being in an environment where they can learn whatever baseball skills, life skills, mindset skills, like that. There's nothing more important than that. So, um, everybody has kind of their own thoughts about when should a kid start specializing, when should maybe he or she kind of go whatever. I don't know the exact answer to that. Every situation is different, but what I do know is that the three things that I just said, that is the most important at this age group that we're talking about. Those are the things. That's the environment. There is no 9-year-old right now out there playing baseball or any sport that, their game this weekend is going to really have any like determining factor about whether he or she becomes a professional. Like zero, right? Um, so it's everybody can do kind of, they can run the programs that they want. Um, there's always extra, you can always do lessons, you can always specialize, but I think at the base, I love the example that you said about like playing tag. It's finding multiple ways to skin a cat and having fun. And there aren't many 9-year-olds at like an hour after the game or even 10 minutes after the game that can even remember what the score was.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And
It
I'm not saying
right.
I'm not saying that they're not going to try while they're there, but they're 9.
That's a great psychological skill to have.
Yeah, of course. Of course. I'm not defined by what just happened on that athletic field. Like, but maybe I didn't like it. Maybe I could have done better. Maybe I wish we won, but
Mhm, mhm.
I'm not defined by the score because I'm 9. And the parent of that 9-year-old, it's not like their family is shamed, like if the kid didn't have a good performance. Um, and it's the kid's opportunity. It's not the parent's athletic career in that realm is not the focus. And the kid should not be living, in my opinion, through the dreams, the broken dreams or aspirational dreams of the parent. And not every parent is able to do that. I get it. I'm not telling people how to parent, but at the end of the day, it needs to be about the child playing the sport,
Yep.
right?
Yeah. Give me a few more years of being a dad, and I'll come on here and I'll rant about parenting.
I'm gonna have to talk you off a ledge. Um, no,
This
but like
gets
how many
30 minutes
times,
and
right? Like
yeah.
any of the inappropriate stuff. What you said earlier is spot on though. It's you want to give all these kids and younger people the benefit of the doubt, but so many of them, if they're representative of the environment, right? The apple doesn't fall far from the tree for better or for worse. And that's the one thing that kind of gets me sometimes, that, there's always a parent in the stands going too far, doing something, the conduct is not right. And more times than not, that parent's child has some challenges.
Mhm.
Um, and it's like, I understand. I understand as your dad is like, has a fan, a dad from the other team in a chokehold at our 10-year-old soccer game. Like, I understand why you're having some behavioral issues,
Yeah.
you
Oh
know?
gosh. Yeah. All right. So now we're on the topic of sports parents. Tell me about this 99 rules series that you have. You have one for athletes. More
Yep.
recently, one you have one for sports parents, right?
Yep. So the first one I wrote was, um, it's 99 rules every athlete needs to know. And I'm assuming, I'm not making I don't know, but I'm assuming, um, you probably were not a big reader either when you were younger. I didn't love like reading, but this is the kind of book that I would have liked to have read. It's not just for kids. Um, there's a rule, maybe 7 or 8 kind of sentences about it, inspirational, practical. You can kind of implement it immediately. And then kind of like a mic drop line. You can open up the book to any page, and it's they're quotes, things to take with you, empowering, actionable points, easy to kind of navigate through, can highlight it, take it with you. Um, and that book was maybe out for, I don't know, 3, 4 months. And I started having parents say to me, like, you know, I think we need something like that, like we're not just trying to develop these great younger people, but, uh, you know, I don't know if my behavior on the car ride to the activity is appropriate. Certainly, I don't know if it was on the way home. I don't
Yeah.
know what should we say, how should we reframe stuff. So that was the second book that I wrote, was 99 Rules Every Sports Parent Needs to Know, kind of written in that same structure. Um, and within like 2 months, the parent book outsold the other book like 3 to 1.
Oh.
They both do, but we sell a lot of copies. Uh, I say that very, very with an outrageous amount of humility. Um, and seriously, I never, if you said to me when I was 10, hey, you're going to be writing books one day, I'd be like, whatever, coloring books. Um, but so they're tools, they have impact, and, type of thing you can read over and over again. Um, Gotten 14-year-old kids reading it, professional athletes. So I got an email maybe a month ago. One of my mom who's 80, one of her golfing buddies, read the book, and she was saying how, a couple of things she took with her, for like helping her putt or whatever. It didn't have anything to do with putting, but it had to do with her mindset, confidence, belief, grit, all that. And that really made me feel pretty good. It's like, first I thought they were just buying the books because they're my mom's friends, and maybe they did. But all of a sudden now she's like reading it saying, hey, it's rule 46. I know it. So,
That's
um,
amazing.
yeah, it's been awesome. Been awesome.
So what are there's 99 rules for sports parents. What are some of the most important ones that we could talk about right here, right now?
We talked about one briefly, which is, you don't want to block the bruise that builds the backbone,
Mm,
which is, kind of about letting the kid fall. There's a lot of rules in there about legacy and what we're ultimately trying to build here, which is, a human that can walk into any office or locker room or boardroom and, be able to interact with what matters. So there's a lot of stuff in there on how to help the kid focus, how to, build basically a great, confident human being who also happens to play sports. Um, there's a lot in there about um, conduct and things that are good and things maybe we shouldn't say either to coach or parent. But I think it really provides perspective to kind of help parents handle their lane, um, what to say when or if the child isn't happy, reframing things like actions and behaviors, conversations, how to handle, coaches maybe that are screamers and yellers, all of that stuff, which, there's no parents, we just kind of thrown into it, like you don't know how to handle those situations. So it's very, very approachable, quick, good read, and um, yeah, available on the website and on Amazon. But so yeah, that's how that has kind of come to fruition.
nice. How do you talk to parents about the car ride home? Because that seems to be the most important sort of conversation and what seems to be the number one reason why kids are quitting youth sports before the age of 13, which I think is not good for society.
I agree. Well, the first thing is a reminder. I think, one of the first rules in the book is, the kids are looking for a parent, not another coach. So it's really kind of remembering the role. But for so much in the car ride is really about letting it breathe. Letting how to go. Even though they were there. Um, was it fun? Did you like it? The kid's gonna tell you. The parent can see it on the kid's face probably before they even get in the car. But they're short leading questions. I think you got to get a temperature. That's not the time for analysis. It's not the time for comparing out. I think you got to kind of breathe and let the child talk about the experience, and the child pretty quickly, or the player, not just kids, they're gonna get pretty quick to what they think the issue was. So it's normally gonna be one of these, like the kids like, oh, I'm the worst, fuck, blah blah blah. I'm the worst one out there. I shouldn't even do this. Or they're gonna talk about some obstacle, right? And they're venting. Maybe they couldn't get past it. Um, but that really is where this really kind of starts, is that's when the parents kind of have to kick into reframe moment. They don't need to answer every question, but a lot of times what a lot of parents would say is, well, what it sounds like you didn't like that, but you know what would you have wanted? Like what was the goal? Like what, we're trying to move away from right here, right now into like now what? Like, well, so what can we do next? Um, so it's a lot of listening, a lot of kind of feeling it out. But I normally encourage parents to say, you know what, however the conversation starts about the game or the track meet, whatever it was, let the kids start the conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, you mentioned
Not
the
always easy. Not always easy,
no.
you know.
I I'm thinking about it in my own head now, like, the parent not being the coach. If my son decides to play baseball, I don't wanna coach him whatsoever, and I'm gonna have to be really, really conscious of
Yep.
not, like, doing like, when he gets in the car, when I'm thinking about just over and over and over again, before I say anything else, I just wanna tell my son, "Hey, dude, I loved watching you play today,"
There
and
we
that's
go.
it. Like, that's
That
what I've been
that's a
trying to
huge
remind
one.
myself.
Yes, that's a huge one, and celebrating always the things that matter, right? Like the principles of life or being a good kid. I'm not just saying, "Hey, you tried hard, great." Winning doesn't matter, but celebrating those things, like, and letting the kid know, "I love being here. I'm so proud of your compete level. That matters. Loved your effort." um you know the we're not just making up things, but the stuff that does matter, because I think the more the kid learns truly what the point of all of this is, yeah, we can go critique performances and maybe we want to switch there or change there, but what you just said is the most important. They got to know how much you care, how much you enjoyed it. um because you're dad and they're the kid, and made you happy, made you proud, and that's where it has to start.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think also parents get into a trap of undermining the coach, and then they wonder why the player doesn't listen to the coach anymore. Well, it's because in the car ride home, he basically said he was a fucking blabbering idiot for 10 minutes straight.
Absolutely.
And then the kid goes to practice and he's trying to teach him maybe the fundamentals of whatever the case may be. And your son's just like not listening, not paying attention because subconsciously he thinks this dude in front of him is a dumbass. And
It's
so,
that happens. It's parents in, like, after the game, in parking lots, in the lobby, wherever it is, to other parents, maybe talking shit about another kid on the team. Like, the kids hear and see everything. And
oh,
you're
yeah.
right. The behaviors tolerated become encouraged, so like the parents really have to remember that they are always being watched, they're always being seen, they're always being heard. Like the child was always kind of like they're going to follow that lead. So yes, you're right. When you talk about, little Sally or little Johnny, or this coach doesn't know anything, you're right. That becomes the foundation for the kid, and that is a problem.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. We mentioned one of the pillars, one of the 7 pillars of your blueprint was focus. Is there any other ones that you wanna sort of dive deep into? I mean, I know people can explore that information, but there's 7 of them. Is there any other one outside of focus
Yep.
that really stands out to you?
So it's probably belief, and I get asked this all the time, because the word that I right, so of the seven, right, belief, attitude, grit, focus, emotional control, discipline, self awareness. I spend a lot of time in the belief area, and a lot of people come to me and say, I don't know if anything's wrong, but like something doesn't feel right, you know? Um, and a lot of it has to do with kind of that belief confidence dynamic. And the easiest way that I can explain it to people, because they're like, well, what's the difference? If you think about a tree outside, what you see above ground, that's confidence. What you don't see below ground, that's belief. So in that example of the tree, like, no roots, no tree, no belief, no confidence. So feeling confident is really a function of tapping into belief. I think a lot of people try and manufacture confidence. It certainly is important, but I'm trying to feel confident. I'm trying to do this, rather than tapping into belief. And then the kind of where that ends up is the feeling of confidence. And I do this all the time with athletes, if they're ever struggling with this, or anybody. we'll say, I want you to think about this takes 10 seconds. I want you to think about a performance last year, a goal that you scored, or a play that you made, or a ball that you hit, something that was like epic, right? It was, everyone saw it, everyone heard it, places going nuts. It made a difference. Coaches cheering, your parents are cheering, your team's mobbing you. And, most of the time the kids, like, they immediately start to smile. And I know they have a moment, right? They probably remember the field where they were, or the rink, what jerseys they were wearing. Was it rainy, sunny, right? Like, they remember all the details. They start going back to that. And I say, like, how's that feel when you think about it? And they say, yeah, it feels really good. I say, like, you get a little grind in your stomach, like you want to get after it a little bit. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I said, well, like, you know what that feeling is called? That feeling is called confidence. But not because we did anything other than tap into something that they've already did, a fact, and bring it forward. And that becomes like a good baseline. So anybody that's struggling on like the confidence side or the belief side, um, I first try and help them understand that there's a difference. Those two things are not the same thing. And that really is why belief is so important. I mean, it's the roots, right? You gotta have belief.
Yeah. Yeah, I love this idea of, like, not relying on feelings for confidence, because
Yep,
I think your feelings follow your behaviors. I know that every time I walked out on the baseball field, I wasn't feeling confident. I could
that's
have
right.
went 0 for 4 the night before. Maybe I had a bad podcast recording last night, and I'm not feeling very good about this conversation. But how do I act? Okay, I do the same routine I normally do. I get my coffee, I take my notes, I listen to the person here, I write down how I'm going to think, sort of the pace of the conversation. Okay, so those actions. Now, when I finally sit down to have the conversation, I now do feel confident because I've done the same actions over and over
Yep,
again. And that's way more reliable than, like, oh shit, I have a game today. Fuck, I got to feel confident. No, no, I'll,
that's right. And you know what is also helping people understand that, like, thoughts are just thoughts. Thoughts aren't facts. Like, just because you think it doesn't mean it's going to happen, doesn't mean that it did happen, that that person thinks this about you, about that person is. Thoughts are just thoughts, right? They're almost like suggestions. So before we tend to go down the rabbit hole of having the thought impact the feelings, then impact the behavior, I always suggest, let's lend some credibility here. And can we find any proof? I know you think that it was a terrible game, but like, or you're a terrible player, but like, what's the proof? I don't know if it was or it wasn't, but before you start thinking that, let's see if it's true. Um, and that's not always easy, for people, and we all go through it, but thoughts are just thoughts. They're not facts.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you do have like a horrible performance, but you've really based your success on an effort matrix, then you always have something to lean on. Yeah, today was a really bad game, but I still gave 100%. And that's going to happen a lot in life. You could do all the right things, perfect job interview, you set up, you said great answers, great questions, you gave 100% effort, you were focused, you were tuned in, and we don't want you here. Sorry.
And you know what? The goal is not I don't even use that word perfection. The goal is not perfection. And at some point, right? Like, and I'm sure you can attest to this. Maybe you're seeing the ball really, really well, at practice, and um, your swing's looking great, whatever. And you spend all your practice time trying to hit. Well, that other pitcher is spending all his practice time trying to make you not hit. Right. So I don't know if it was good or bad. Maybe you had a great at bat. Maybe the pitcher just had a little bit better of, going through his actions. I don't know if that was bad on you. Maybe it was just good on him. And, I had a great shot. The goalie made a better save. That wasn't a mistake. That's
Right.
why we play. That's why we compete.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Right.
love that framework. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Last thing I want to ask you, Sandy, is how can we help, or how do you help specifically people thrive under pressure?
Um, well, the big thing about pressure is that it's pressure or nerves or anxiety. They're all real feelings. I'm not minimizing any of them, but I think also it's helping people understand that those feelings are typically associated with our mind being in the future, right? Like things we don't know. We don't know how's it going to play out, so I don't always know if it is pressure. Sometimes it's just emotions
Mm,
for things that have not yet happened. That sounds pretty normal. I don't know how I'm going to feel about it. I have feelings about it. I don't know if it's good or bad, whatever. But in those moments where pressure really kind of takes over, I think it's up to coaches to really kind of help their players recreate those areas of practicing under pressure. And I think that one of the best ways to do that is helping players understand, what are the boundaries, what are the standards, not expectations, what are the standards, right? What framework is good, what framework is bad, where are we living, where are we not living, and helping them understand what success is and how much they really are in control of the things they can control. That so much of those fears are really not about things they can control. Those are things they can impact. And everything in life, I think, has to fall into one or three buckets. You can either control it, you can impact it, or you have to let it go.
mm,
So I think a lot of education of helping people understand that is we can't fast forward. We can visualize, like you said, we can recreate it, but we can also spend a lot of time reminding ourselves, not trying to convince, reminding ourselves who we are, what we're about, our past wins. That's where kind of the challenge comes. A lot of people I think that feel pressure are in that convince mode, not in the reminder mode. So pressure's real, anxiety's real, but I think it's a lot of reining back into the right here, right now moment.
mm. Yeah. I love the idea of seeing pressure as an opportunity, as a challenge.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah.
as a as like, this is why we play the game, dude. I want to be, you know, uh, up to bat with the game on the line. I want to be
That's
the
right.
guy who got choose to have the huge podcast recording with a great guest because, something important is happening or whatever. I don't know. I just kind of made that up. I don't even know if that
Yeah.
would happen, but
That's what's
you
that's where
get my point.
the magic happens in the growth areas. You know, Uh, Dreams go to die in comfort zones, right? I mean, I've heard that a million times, but I really, really believe it. I try to teach it, and I growth zones are where the magic happens. Fear means go, doesn't mean stop. Um, but you got to be able to trust your gut. If you've done the work, if you've done the reps, and you know that whatever happens, like you're going to make the right decision because you've done it a million times. Then a lot of athletes, I think, pull back a little bit of not feeling that pressure because there's proof that they've done it before. And the irony is the thing that they were most worried about was something that they really don't have control over. How's that person going to look at you? I don't know. But if you want that person to look at you well, we got to start with the things you can control. That's going to be the best way to do it.
Yeah.
You know?
Fantastic. Sandy, is there anything that I didn't ask you, maybe that I failed to mention that you want to touch on here before we jet
No,
off into the sunset?
no. This was awesome. Honestly, you're really, really good at this. It's supernatural. Loved it. And I do a lot of speaking. SandyCohen.com is where you can find the books. The books are on Amazon. Coach athletes, all sports, business folks. And um, I think for a lot of people, the only other thing I'd say is working on this skill for anybody and everybody does not mean that there is something wrong with you or that you can't. All of these things should not be the switch you flip when or if things go wrong, right? So like having mental toughness or having a good mental game, those fit under, in my opinion, those fit under the world of the concept of mindset. They're not interchangeable, but being a master of those things that you can control, like that's what it's about.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the not so secret, sort of unsecret, now not so secret unlock.
That's right. That's yeah. I couldn't have said that any better myself.
But if you wanna check out Sandy, we'll just we got everything linked down below. His website's got everything. And dude, I appreciate the conversation. I'm happy to know you, and thank you very much.
Yeah, man. Best of luck with the baby.
Thank you. Thank you very much for tuning into that episode. And if you enjoyed it, click right here for another full-length episode of the podcast. And please don't forget to subscribe. But most importantly, above all else, please take good care of yourselves and others. And I'll see you next time. Lots of love. Cheers.